Follow Gris, a young girl exploring a world devoid of color, as you work on bringing the color back, unlocking various abilities, and listening to some beautiful music on the way. Gris released originally in December 2018, but I only played it for the first time recently. My first playthrough lasted just under 4 hours, and then I spent another hour and a half gathering up all the collectibles in the game, so my total playtime ended up being around 6.5 hours, which does include few breaks where I left the game turned on. Throughout the entire experience I had no issues with performance, glitches or lag, and overall found it to be a pretty smooth playing. Now, the game itself does not have a direct story in the traditional sense. There is no dialogue or text, and while there are cutscenes to convey a message, I found they can also be interpreted slightly differently from what the developer intended, based on your own life experience, though there is definitely a story the developers wanted to give. But the gameplay is where it shines. Gris is a pleasure to play. While this is a game without any dangers or death, it is pure exploration in search of stars you need to progress, along with optional hidden mementos scattered around the maps. The world is beautifully crafted with various stunning areas, each drawn in just the right amount of detail and colored with soft watercolor style. Each area has its own themed look, giving a good diversity while never coming off as overly harsh or disjointed. And as you travel through these areas, you master new abilities to move around them, shifting your dress to turn into a block to break ground obstacles, making you light as a feather to float short distances, or even giving you the chance to explore underwater areas. In each chapter you are introduced to a new movement mechanic and puzzles you need to solve to progress in the world. This progression feels very natural, with the game introducing the different puzzle mechanics in a simple but yet intuitive way. You have all the time you need to figure out how to progress. The game doesn't rush you in solving the puzzles, and it does not try to tell you how to progress. Instead, you're allowed to experiment at your own pace and figure out for yourself how to move past the new obstacles. And I never found it overly hard. There was a moment where I had to experiment for a few minutes to understand the mechanics and limitations of the new challenge I had encountered. But it never felt like I needed to reach for a guide, and each time I figured something out, it felt very rewarding and fun. And as I learned how to take on the new obstacles, I was glad to see them returning later on as well, often mixed with newer and older challenges, requiring me to think about the problems in a new way, take on more complex platforming, and use my entire arsenal of abilities to progress. This gradual challenge progression and regular introduction of new mechanics kept me engaged throughout the entire game. While the game is not very long, it felt like I was always tackling something new, and I thoroughly enjoyed every moment of it. A large part of that is that the controls feel incredibly smooth and responsive. While the game is recommended for controllers, I did not have any issues playing with my keyboard. Just the keyboard, because the mouse was not needed. All the controls were allocated to the WASD keys, along with spacebar, K and L. But I never felt limited by my controls of choice, so there's nothing stopping you from using the keyboard if those are your preferred controls. But you should always go with the controls that you feel most comfortable with, as forgetting yourself in the game is the ideal way to play it. Wherever you go, you have the game's beautiful soundtrack to accompany you, matching the unique feel of its area. The music hits just the right level of not too quiet and not too loud. It is soothing, atmospheric, and beautiful. And while I adore the music, what impressed me the most was the little sounds. The footsteps, the splash of water, creaking of gears, each little detail adding to your presence in the world, making it feel more alive and magical. And while the game is not long, I easily lost myself in it. And I know I will be playing it again in the future when I just need something comfy and fun to play. In fact, you can easily return to your favorite areas through the chapter selection screen, after you finish the game, which is good as finding all the in-game collectibles and a secret area gives you an extra cutscene. So jumping between the chapters allows you to more easily find all of the secrets, something I went and did pretty much right after finishing it for the first time. I did record my entire playthrough and put it up on my channel, so if watching Gris appeals to you more than playing it, or perhaps if you simply want to see someone else experience it for the first time, it is there for your enjoyment. In the end, Gris is an excellent game. It delivers on its promise of a short adventure through a mystical world. The gameplay is fun, the audio is pleasant, and the game runs like a dream. So if you enjoy gaming experiences like this, you should give Gris a go. But tell me, what do you think? Is Gris worth playing? Have you played it before, and what are your thoughts on it? Let's talk about all that down in the comments, and while you're down there, do the good YouTube stuff. You know, the like, the subscribe, all that. At least if you want to see more of my content. But in the end, all I want to say is tack för att horva, og the yndislegan dag.